of prosperity, of thinking, again, in the crucified way. And this is good for everybody to remember. And Sister Hicks made a demonstration of it once in one of the most recent conventions. She had a huge cross, and there was a ladder that one of our brothers could climb up onto that. And she said, she started preaching, you pastors of Christ Gospel Church and this and that and the other, and really, kind of building them up. And then she said, but the problem is, once you've grown up in that stature, and is this, and she had the young man crawl up and straddle the top of the cross and sit up on that cross. And she said, that is what you are now, because you think you know so much. You're using Jesus Christ to lift yourself up. That's the danger in crucified way. To take the word and take the message and take the gifts and take all of the knowledge and the wisdom and the mysteries and to get up high and think that you're something so hot. And the prosperity destroys a lot of people, even in the natural. What happens to most of the healing ministries? Why don't we have those anymore? Because God, at one time in the past, back in the 50s, got sick and tired. He told Sister Hicks, I'm sick and tired of these gift ministries, because all they would do, they would come in sincere, they would come in humble, God would use them, they would get the auditoriums filled, they would do tremendous miracles through the power of God, and then after a while they started feeling themselves rich and increased in goods and had need of nothing, and then they would crash. God would pull it out from under them, because they were building their own little kingdom and putting their own name up instead of doing it for the glory of God. So in these days of prosperity, here in this country especially, that's what we're going to have to be aware of, and in this message especially, is to sit back and say, okay, I'll go to convention and I'll get another dose, and then I'll float along on that until the next convention, and then I'll go to another mountain peak and get all up in the glory clouds again, and that'll hold me over till the next convention. And there's 4 conventions a year now, and so we can bounce from convention to convention and just live in one sense up on the mountaintop and not be dealing with these things down underneath, because the prosperity blinds us to the need of our souls and the need of the humility of Jesus Christ. And we'll be buying and drinking and planting and building and doing this and constructing here and working over there and running here and running there, and we'll have no time for the Lord, because, I'm rich, I can do it. And then whammo, the Lord pulls the rug out from under. And like in that vision of the ship of Zion, that's what they were doing. They were so full of, I can teach that. Oh, I know that. And, God's not going to do anything to me, I'm a good child as far as, I don't drink, and they're just walking around, milling around, but not busy with the things that were really necessary. And they were filled up with the prosperity of the I don't know how to explain it, the feel-goods of this time. And they're starting to use that word a lot as far as the modern-day government's concerned. The government wants to make us feel fuzzy. They want us to feel fuzzy and comfortable in all of their social programs to get us to lay down and say, okay, now everything's fine and beautiful and no problems. Big Uncle Sam's going to take care of me and everything's going to be okay. And that's the way we are as Christians in this last age. If you really look, and if you look at your own life, that's a big temptation. Just to get to feeling good, and then, okay, now I'll float on that for a while, and then everything will be okay. But Lot had to come out. And it says in the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone in heaven and destroyed them all. What was the problem with Sodom? Perversion. And it says in the Word of God that God destroyed all of the cities round about. Not just Sodom and not just Gomorrah, but the cancer was going out over the whole land to pervert it and to destroy the things that God had wanted for them. Let's go back to Genesis. And let's see how God got Lot out. This came to me when I was praying. Let's see where it is. Lot. Be back in the first chapters. Sodom and Gomorrah, chapter 19. You remember the two angels came down, and they came to, three of them. The Lord and two angels came and spoke to Abraham. And Abraham gave them food, and then the angels went on their way because they wanted to go see what was going on down there. They wanted to have a first-hand vision of what was down there. In verse 1 of chapter 19 it said, "And there came two angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom." Now, the life of Lot is, I'm not so sure about Lot. If you study his life, he came out of the Ur of the Chaldeans with Abraham. And God had told Abraham, you separate yourself from everybody. And yet Lot hung on and tagged along. And Abraham permitted it. And Abraham got into trouble a few times because of Lot. But yet, here they go down into Canaan's land. And then there came a time when it was they were fighting. The shepherds were fighting each other. And so Abraham said, okay, I don't want this, and this isn't right. You choose where you want your field. You choose where you want your flocks, and then I'll take whatever's left. And so Abraham gave him the choice. And what did Lot choose? He chose the best. He chose the green fields of Jordan, but in what place? Where did he go to live? Let's go back to chapter 13. Chapter 13, in verse 7, it says, "And there was strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take to the left hand, then I will go to the right. And if thou dost depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered, everywhere before the Lord, destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest into Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. And they separated themselves one from the other. And Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. So Lot chose to go close to the place of sin and pitch his tent. And the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up thine own eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward, eastward, and so on, and I will give this land to thee and to thy seed. But Lot chose to go down into a place of prosperity, a place of where it was all green and beautiful, where he wasn't going to have any problems or troubles. But that place that looked so good was a place that was so filled with sin, so filled with wickedness, that within a few years God had to destroy it. And it said here that he went and he pitched his tent close to Sodom. He pitched it towards Sodom. But yet, back a little bit later on, where we are right now, in, what chapter were we in?
19.
In 19. Chapter 19, you'll see here in this chapter that he was inside of Sodom. He had moved in with them. And yet, in that state, he had to have held on enough to God that God was willing, for Abraham's sake at least, to get him out. And we know his wife wasn't that righteous, and his two daughters definitely weren't righteous. They just kind of escaped to get out of whatever was coming. But they were tremendously wicked. They had incest with their father afterwards. So they didn't come out because they were righteous. But God did get them out. These two angels went in, and you know what happened. They came that night knowing that there were two men, two new men, two fresh men had come into the city. And they wanted to know those two men. And that word know means to have sexual unity with them. And so Lot had them in their house, and Lot closed the door, and Lot wouldn't let them in. He said, don't do so wickedly. They just wanted to know, well, what's your name and where are you from? Lot wouldn't have said, don't be so wicked. And so they tried to break down the door. And the time came that they smote the men that were at the door with blindness, both small and great, verse 11, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. His sons were so a part of that city, they didn't want to get up and get out. And when the morning arose, the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters which are here, lest they be consumed in the iniquity of this city. And while he lingered, he still hung back. He still did not want to leave that place. The men laid hold on his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters, and the Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth. They pushed him out, basically, and set him without the city. The angels drugged them out. So at least, another way to get out is to be drug out. But that's dangerous. That's dangerous because their hearts were still back in the wickedness. So another way that we're gonna get out of here is for God to send a messenger and say, pack up and run. Or the messenger's going to come and say, within this week the Lord is coming. Pack up spiritually because you're going to get out. Judgment's coming on the face of the earth. God can use angels to come and tell us. God can use angels, messengers, to come and show us what to do at the time that the judgment, the time that the judgment's going to fall, and the time that the wickedness is going to be judged under the fire of God. But it's sad about Lot that he still lingered. He said, well, is it true? Isn't it true? And the angel said, come on, get out. And they were doing it basically because of Abraham. If you read the whole story, it was because of Abraham's prayer, and because Abraham was a friend of God, that they had mercy on his nephew that was so stubborn and so ingrained. And I used this once to explain about being pilgrims and strangers. I studied in this about, if you read where it says they were pilgrims and they were strangers. And Lot just went down, to dwell in the general area. He pitched his tent in the general area. After a while, he moved in. And then after a while, he was inside. And when the angels found him, he was sitting in the gate like one of the judges of the city. He had become a part of that situation down there. You can't fool around with sin and be free from it. And he was so joined to it, he wasn't that willing to get up and get out. Even when two angels, he had seen the miracle they'd done to those wicked men outside the door. He knew that there was something tremendous going to happen, and yet he still held back. And God in his mercy still got him out of there in time so that the judgment didn't fall. And when he got out, they told him, now you flee. In verse 17, and it came to pass when they brought them forth abroad, he said, escape for thy life. Look not behind thee. Neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And you keep reading on down. He didn't want to go to the mountain. He wanted to go to another city down somewhere on the plain. And that's a good example for us of rebelling. But this is a good example to show us that we can get caught up in the prosperity. We can get caught up in in the sexual sins of this time, if he really would have had a good, clean heart, if he would have really had a righteousness in him that oh, this is horrible, he wouldn't be sitting in the plaza. He wouldn't be sitting in the main street down there as if he were one of the bunch. He would have been up there prophesying and preaching to them of the wickedness of that place. But he was there because his cattle could eat and he could become a rich man in the midst of the wickedness and the perversion of that city. He was trying to get gain for himself in a place of tremendous wickedness. And he almost lost his life for it. But for what we're studying today, Lot's life is, like I said, it's fascinating on one side because he could have been so good and so powerful, and yet his choices were so constantly wrong. And he said, well, I'm just going to go down for a while, I'm just going to go down close to it. But after a while, he ended up right in it. You can't fool around, especially with perversion. Any type of perversion, the spirits are so tremendous. It's not genetical. They'll never find a gene in any cell of a human body that makes a person a homosexual. It is not genetical. It's not chemical, because God would not condemn something that he made somebody on purpose. He's not going to make a person, he's not going to create even a possibility of a person. He's not going to put something in them that could go either way. And then say, now I'm going to judge you for that. I made you like that, but I'm going to judge you for that. You were born that way because I put a gene in your body, but I'm going to kill you because you're that way. God's not that way. It's illogical. So they'll never find a gene. There'll never be anything. They'll find something that they'll be able to tack onto it. But God calls it an abomination. And like I've mentioned before, it's the only sin that God has destroyed. 3 generations. Destroyed the world in Noah's day. Wiped out a whole bunch of cities in the valley of Jordan for this, and almost destroyed the whole tribe of Benjamin because they protected the homosexuals and the perverts of their day. So it's one of the sins you don't fool around with because the spirits are so tremendous. And what is the sin? One of the biggest sins that's exploding in these days? Homosexuality. And how many Christians are accepting homosexuality? How many churches are permitting them to be married in their sanctuaries? How many major denominations have allowed them to be ministers within their churches? So how are we going to escape? We're going to stand against. And we're going to stand apart from this. And we're going to call it, if nothing else, if we don't have the anointing or we don't have the valor to step out in public and denounce it publicly, or denounce it in the classroom, or denounce it at work, at least ounce. Inside of our souls, we can stand for what is right, and that's how we're going to get out. We're going to stand for what God's word is, and we're going to be just. And I don't suggest by giving this example that you drag your heels so that you have to be dragged out at the rapture, because that's not going to happen. The ones that go in the rapture are going to be the ones that are ready to get out. The ones that are ready. The one, if you remember, it says those that remain and are alive. Not the ones that are sitting down in the pleasures of sin and fooling around with the prosperity of the Laodicean church age. These aren't the ones that are going. The ones that are going in the rapture are going to be the ones that are ready and alive. They're going up to Mount Zion to be part of the bridal dinner, the feast of the Lamb, the bridal feast, the wedding of the Lamb. They're going to be ready. They're going to be waiting for that. Whether they make the bride or not, they're going to be ready. And there will be Christians that aren't out of our church, or many Christians. There are Christians. We're not going to be like Elijah saying, "Oh, I'm the only one." There are other Christians out there that are, to their level of knowledge, they're living the best and holiest of lives that they can live, and they're getting ready to, for the coming of the Lord. But 90% of the church world is going in the opposite direction, and they're going there faster and faster and accepting things that God does not want to accept. So prosperity is one of the things, and the sexual sins of this age These are two things that we have to separate ourselves from. Now, if God gives Sister Gloria a millionaire to marry, well, we'll accept him very, very kindly within our group and be very nice to him, and we'll pray that his prosperity doesn't go to his head or to his pocketbook. You know, that he'll be willing to share. God's not against the riches. We can pray it down. God's not against prosperity, but he's against when we fall in love with the prosperity and we get wrapped up in it, either spiritually or naturally. So, how many of you want to get out? Amen. How many of you want to go to the wedding of the bride? Amen. Wedding of the Lamb? Amen. How many of you want to get your dress made? Amen. Well, number one, we've got to be like Noah. And we've got to understand, if for some reason, outside of our rebellion, you know, God will have mercy on us. He can make us make an ark, or he can send angels to help us get out. That's what I'm trying to use these two examples for. He can tell us, make your own boat to get out. You know, not naturally, spiritually, because, I mean, we can't do that other than in the spiritual side. And there is that side too. That's what we're doing by growing. But on the other side, you know, we can do spiritual things to get natural things to get ready. Like we mentioned yesterday, you know, get a backpack and get your shoes and, you know, buy a horse or whatever. You can do these natural things if the Lord puts it on you and shows you, you know, that there's going to be a time of persecution where you're going to have to do that to be able to keep yourself clean and to keep yourself separated until he comes. And then on the other side, we can trust the Lord to, he says his spirit, his angels are ministering spirits to those that are inheritors of the redemption of the Lord. And that's us. So his angels will also take care of us. And they'll help us get out of here if that's when it comes down to that time. And they'll speak to us and they'll say, you know, prepare, it's coming. Be it the natural or be it the spiritual rapture. But we've got, like I said last night, we've got to have our ears open. And we've got to be separated from these things of the world that are going to keep our ears all plugged up. The things of the world, all it's going to do is stop up our channels so we cannot hear the voice of God on how to get ready in these last days. And remember, it's now or never. Now or never. Amen? Amen, amen? You want to get ready? Amen? So later on this evening, we'll see some other examples and understand a little bit more of what we have to do to be able to get out. Amen? Let's stand up and thank God for his word. And let's ask him to bless it and help us understand we're to be perfect and upright in the midst of a wicked generation. We're to stand for his righteousness in the middle of prosperity and sexual sins. We're in the middle of the divorce and the wickedness of all of the perversion of marrying and being given in marriage and all of this of these last days. We're to stand firm and be separated, be a holy people unto the Lord to be able to get out. Sister Veronica, you want to thank the Lord for the word?
Thank you, Father God, for the word. Father God, we want to be